Paris at the turn of the 20th century. The well-documented Belle Epoque period attracted expatriate artists of all types. With ideas in the air, painters, poets, playwrights, and several pianists flocked to the French capital. This rich stew of creative energy nourished the souls and minds of a generation who hungered for a better world. They believed that persevering in excellence was the way to the stars. Pianist Harold Bauer, born in England, studied in Paris with Paderewski and concertized extensively in Russia, Europe, the Netherlands, and Scandinavia. In 1900, Bauer made his American debut with the Boston Symphony, performing the U.S. premiere of Brahms' first piano concerto. Returning to France, he gave the world premiere performance in December of 1908 of Claude Debussy's solo piano suite, Children's Corner. It was during this time in Paris that Bauer was introduced to a young woman from the U.S. visiting Europe that summer with her sister and a cousin. This fateful meeting would change the lives of both individuals. This woman would become the founder of Manhattan School of Music, Janet Daniel Schenck, and Bauer her lifelong mentor and advisor. The young pianist played for Bauer. He suggested she stay in Paris through the winter to study with him, and arrangements were made. After her final lesson with Bauer, he asked her what she wanted to do when she returned to New York. She told him that she wanted to start a school. It never occurred to him to doubt her. Janet Daniels returned to the bustle of New York. In the period before the U.S. entry into World War I, the city had grown with a large influx of immigrants, and Janet, having augmented her knowledge of music with courses at Columbia University and the New York School of Social Work, developed an interest in helping them adjust to their adopted country. She began teaching music at the Union Settlement on East 104th Street, around the corner from where she was living. Realizing that the Italians, Poles, Irish, Germans, and Russians in that East Harlem community came from countries with strong musical cultures, she felt this could be a key component to their prosperity. In her 1960 memoir, Adventure in Music, Janet Daniel Schenck wrote,
I had developed an enormous interest in communities, the lives they encompassed, in different racial groups, their problems, and their adjustments to our country. Was better housing the answer? Were more playgrounds the solution? Was women's suffrage the important point? I certainly tired myself out marching in the parades. Surely the difficulties with which my inner spirit was concerned faced both rich and poor alike. Instinctively, I knew that one could serve only through a medium vital to oneself, and for me, that medium was music. One point was very clear to me. I would not insist on any one expression in this field of music. I would work when and where and in what way opportunity came to me.
By 1918, she had organized instructors, donors, and a board of directors to form an independent music school. There were 100 students, and the fee charged was 50 cents a lesson. Harold Bauer, who by this time had immigrated to New York himself, became one of the school's first members of the Artist Auxiliary Board. He was joined by Pablo Casals, whom Janet had also met on her sojourn to Paris, then later by Fritz Kreisler. Dr. Schenck's humble dream of a small community music school was to eventually grow into an internationally renowned degree-granting conservatory. One of the school's first graduates was a young woman born in Ukraine, around the time that Janet Daniels was meeting Harold Bauer for the first time in Paris. Dora Zaslavsky's tremendous talent was recognized by Mrs. Schenck, who became her teacher. She also took lessons from Bauer, who gave special classes and taught privately on and off at MSM between concert tours, with Wanda Landowska, and with Wilhelm Bachhaus, who brought Dora to Europe for further study and an intensive introduction to the life of a concert pianist. But performing publicly was not in the cards for Dora. Severe stage fright kept her from a major career. She chose teaching as her life mission, staying at her alma mater for over 60 years. Mrs. Schenck introduced Dora to artist John Koch, one of America's most notable realist painters. Dora became a muse for John, who produced portrait after portrait of her and included her in many of his ensemble scenes. An art critic for the New York Herald Tribune compared the lightness and freshness of some of these portraits with that of the old masters, and added, "Of course, Mr. Koch is lucky. He married a Rubens." Their apartment on Central Park West became the hub of art, culture, and intellectual social life for a privileged few, many immortalized in Koch's paintings. In addition to Dora's MSM pupils, who gathered in her home for regular Wednesday classes, evening suppers, and impromptu soirees, Dora coached and guided numerous professional musicians, among them David Barillon and Abby Simon. Simon has remarked, "Dora was a gifted teacher, and she changed my entire approach to the piano. She was a classicist, just the sort of cold bath I needed. Once, after I played her a sonata by Mozart, she looked at me and said, 'Well, that's a very nice Chopin mazurka.'" Dora's students were in awe of the highly cultivated environment that was created by the Kochs, where the likes of soprano Montserrat Caballé and composer Virgil Thompson mingled with a myriad of writers and artists. One such wide-eyed student was Noémie Carpati, who came to MSM to study with Dora after escaping with her parents from Hungary during that country's 1956 revolution. Dora's influence had a profound effect on Noémie. She was inspired years later to become a philanthropist, join the MSM Board of Trustees, provide critical support toward the school's Steinway initiative, and become the primary funder of the multi-million-dollar renovation of MSM's principal performance space, now called Najdorf-Karpati Hall. Noémie has stated, "I felt so lucky and proud to be part of her studio. That nurturing intimacy which I got from Dora has always been one of the great strengths of this school." After Dora Zaslavsky's death in 1987, her and John Koch's estate gift established a scholarship at MSM, and the school's annual piano competition is named in her honor. Arthur Rubinstein once said of Constance Keene's performance, "I cannot imagine anybody, including Rachmaninoff, playing the piano so beautifully." Having won the Naumburg piano competition in 1943, Keene's career took off after she stood in for Vladimir Horowitz when he was unavailable for a 1946 concert. She toured and recorded extensively as half of a piano duo with Abram Chasins, her husband and a former teacher. In her teens, Keene had met Rachmaninoff and Josef Hoffmann and learned a great deal by listening to and watching them.
I was fortunate enough to go to all the Saturday afternoon concerts at Carnegie Hall. That was the only way I knew Hoffmann, from sitting way in the balcony. One day it dawned on me that he was playing with fantastic ears. He was listening to himself all the time, and that he could make anything sound just perfect. Such a wonderful idea of being able to recreate. I mean, that struck me even when I was a child. I couldn't believe that anybody had that kind of power.
Among Keene's numerous critically acclaimed recordings are the Preludes by Rachmaninoff, as well as the complete Etude de Blois, recorded more than 30 years later. Her albums also include those devoted to the works of Hummel, Weber, Chopin, and Mendelssohn. These and others have been released, then re-released multiple times. After joining the Manhattan piano faculty in 1967, Keene frequently connected her circle of musician friends with the school, including Arthur Rubinstein, Wanda Toscanini-Horowitz, Yehudi Menuhin, and Henrik Zering, to name a few, arranging for their public masterclasses and private coachings. Later in life, she hosted rising young stars, such as Yevgeny Kissin and Long Long, at her home overlooking Lincoln Center. During her 38-year association with MSM, Constance Keene helped establish the Abram Chasins Piano Maintenance Fund, served as chair of the piano department, and had the school's annual concerto competitions named in memory of her parents, Esther and Joseph Eisenberg. Keene's generosity of spirit has inspired many of her former students, not the least of whom is Sung Anderson, who studied with Keene in the graduate program at MSM in the mid-1980s. Later invited to join the Board of Trustees, she and her husband Chris's support helped MSM secure funding to build the school's residence hall, which opened in 2001.
Why had I started the school, and why had I kept on in the face of disturbing obstacles? This seemed to me a rather alarming idea. No one knows better than I do that our school, or any school, is more than the efforts of any one person. It grows from the devotion and vision and hard work of a group of dedicated people, some contributing much and some little, but each leaving upon it the touch of his personality.
The words of Janet Daniel Schenck, written decades ago, still resonate. The legacies of Dora Zaslavsky and Constance Keene live on in the multitude of musicians whose lives were made better and richer for having known them. They live on in the teaching of such devoted faculty members as Philip Kawan and Mark Silverman. They live on in the generous hearts of inspired donors and in the scholarships and funds that they themselves financed. While Dora and Constance are only two of the many extraordinary faculty members in Manhattan School of Music's 100-year history, they truly exemplify the highest ideals of excellence.